Welcome to the Digital Customer Experience Podcast by Kiosk. My name is Daniel Paul, and I'm thrilled to bring you stories, insights, and expert opinions on the ever evolving world of digital customer experience. This podcast is brought to you by Kiosk. Kiosk is a leading SaaS company with a versatile B2B platform combining innovative products and services to drive success in sales, marketing, support, and customer engagement for major brands worldwide. Today, we have a guest who has the voice of a radio host and the talent of a TEDx speaker. Today, we are joined by Robin Wong, a visionary leader who's been at the forefront of the digital revolution. From driving BT's digital transformation to co-founding the fashion tech startup Custom and leading strategy at Telecom, Robin's journey is a masterclass in innovation. He's not just a tech wizard, he's shaken up the digital world, running colossal design sprints and marrying AI with fashion e-commerce. Beyond tech, Robin's passion for sustainability and teaching robots to speak showcases his diverse talent. Born in London, raised in Hong Kong, and a global traveler, Robin's experiences shape his unique perspective. Buckle up for an episode packed with interesting insights from a trailblazer who is redefining the digital landscape. Welcome to the podcast, Robin.
Thanks, Daniel. It's great to be here, and thank you for the very kind introduction.
Robin, you've taught robots to speak, the language of fashion. If you could design a robot to take over one daily chore, what would it be and why?
I think it would have to be a robot that is trained to speak for me in meetings. So if it could look like me and talk like me, and it could go to all the Microsoft Teams calls and Zoom calls and say sensible stuff, then that'd be amazing. Free up
You
my
said
day.
you said what would it be and why is that you want to create that robot?
I think in this modern day after COVID, that we have a lot of meetings, and I think I'm a big fan of doing stuff rather than talking about stuff. So anything that can help cut out those wasted minutes and hours sitting around and focus on actually doing an action and experimenting, I think that'd be a big plus for me.
You are a tech guy and you are heavily investing your time and your knowledge into the AI space. But let's travel a little bit backwards. Who is Robin who taught robots to speak? And give us a little bit insight about what happened. What is that whole project?
Yeah, so I guess I've done that a couple of times. So once was with my company Custom, which was this fashion e-commerce platform, and once was with a company called Fridge Raiders, creating a robot gaming buddy. But I'll talk about the fashion one. And this was back in 2014, and I guess we saw this opportunity to be able to do something smart with AI to help connect people into fashion, especially people who followed fashion influencers, to connect them with the actual fashion with those fashion influencers we're talking about. And we sort of pivoted quite a few times on precisely how it worked, but where we ended up was I trained one robot effectively to go and scour the internet and social media channels of all these influencers, understanding the language that they spoke, and how they talked about fashion, to understand what was trending, what brands were important, what whether it was sort of the Balenciaga jacket or the knife boots, whatever it was that was hot at the moment. And then I had another robot that was scouring what all of the online retailers were selling, and another robot then sort of acted as a translator between the two. And not only that, I guess there was a sort of a fourth bit which looked at cheaper alternatives. So if you really did like that Balenciaga jacket, well, here is the Zara alternative and a bunch of other ones that were cheaper. I guess this was a learning from doing the whole thing. It's like, not everyone can afford the Balenciaga jacket, but there's lots of sort of cheaper dupes that are available. So it was
Amazing.
kind of very interesting, sort of feeding all this training data into the system, having it sort of produce results back to me, and then sort of making small tweaks. And it took about sort of 6 months to train this whole thing to be pretty accurate in finding the alternatives. So
Lovely. And given your early adventures in creating online casino, if you had to bet on one next big tech innovation, what would it be and why?
I think it is the I think the world of AI assistants are gonna. It's already picking up steam, but I can see that really exploding. And I guess the reason I say that is because there's a lot of talk at the moment that AI is not going to replace your job, but it's going to be replaced by a human who really knows how to use it. And we've seen the first wave of these assistants, and whether it's in a customer service context or improving your SEO or sort of basic blog writing, copywriting, these sorts of things. But there's a whole massive world of things that human beings do today that don't necessarily have to be done by humans. And so I
Mm.
think we're going to start to see this wave of innovation as more and more people get to grips with generative AI, and it's so simple to use now that when you combine a bit of that with a bit of automation, you can actually do some incredible things. And I'm very excited to see how augmented human beings can do more in what they do and be a lot more efficient. I think we'll see a lot more sort of solopreneurs, but also a lot more intrapreneurs and big corporates or small corporates actually finding better and smarter ways to do stuff with the help of AI.
You and I know what exactly AI assistance means, but for those who are listening to this and watching this, they might not know what is AI assistance. And could you give like a real life example of what you mean?
Yeah, so I've actually been building a few recently, so I can sort of talk a bit about those. So, as an example, I've recently been building a leadership assistant. That sounds kind of weird, and also a value creation assistant. And platforms like ChatGPT, which is a generative AI platform, give you this ability to actually create your own virtual assistant where you can feed in information. So there might be something you've written, or maybe a book that you've bought that you really like how the author thinks about something. You
You mean
feed
like
this
a GPTs, you mean?
into these GPTs, yeah.
Yeah.
You can provide a set of instructions. You can provide thought starter questions. And then, so if a user says a certain thing, it can answer in a general way, maybe drawing information from those books or your writings and longer instructions. Or if there's something quite specific, it can take you through a sequence series of um, questions and get you to an endpoint. So it's all about sort of understanding what kind of inputs you're trying to get from the user, what processes and questions you're trying to take them through, and what's a great result to get out of the end of it. So, which is quite often the things I'm building produce a sort of a table that you can put to a spreadsheet and act as an input for another system. And so all of these assistants effectively are doing things that they're taking that sort of human knowledge and wisdom and expertise and translating it into a sort of a sequenceable series of steps to be able to get you from point A to point B. Um,
A
so
lot
it's
of
easy.
leaders are now listening to this podcast, and you talked about leadership assistance. If you can elaborate a little bit on that, what does it mean for leaders? What are the benefits? Where does it take them from point A to point Z? What happens?
Yeah, so the leadership assistant I built has got sort of four questions to it. So the first thing is about understanding where you are today. So I applied a lot of systems things to what I do. So part of systems things start off with is about understanding sort of the environment you're in today in that particular context. So as a leader, it's important to understand, what your environment is. So what are the mental models you use? Who are the sort of the thought leaders and peers that you learn from? What's your mental state of mind? How stressed are you? What are the things you do to maintain focused? So to get a sense of the kinds of things that you do today, so you can try to identify where the growth areas are. The next part of it is trying to understand what your goals are. There's this great quote, and I can't remember who said it, but the if you have too many priorities, they're not really priorities, and they're actually distractions.
Yeah.
So the second part of the leadership assistant is all about teasing out all of the things that you want in life. So maybe you want to pay off your mortgage, or you want to go on more holidays, or you want to buy a Ferrari, or whatever it is. It's about listing all these things out and starting to quantify how much value they are, to start to prioritize these things and start to be really laser focused. What is that thing you want out of life? And can you park all of the rest of the stuff and then be laser focused on this as being your sort of goal? The next part of it is a bit like ikigai. I don't know if you know this Japanese
Yep.
ikigai, finding your purpose. It's
Yep.
combining what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid to do. So it's about teasing out your skills and expertise. If you want to get to this place, what are the high demand skills, expertise, experience, valuable things you've achieved yourself and you've helped other people achieve that you can use and put into practice to get to this point. And then the last bit is about time and how you invest your time. So it asks you lots of questions around, how do you spend your weekdays and your weekends? How could you start to maybe remove some of those things which are giving you the sort of the fake dopamine hits, whether it's sort of scrolling through social media or sort of self-medicating with Netflix or a glass of wine or whatever it is, and how you can start to reduce those things down and actually spend more time actually focusing on getting your goal. So the leadership assistant is really to help you sort of be really clear on where you're headed and help you refine your time and how you invest your time and energy and skills to get there.
Love
And
it,
that
love it.
sets you up for these other systems.
How it's amazing that it's like a combination of getting things done methodology, where it laser focuses on what you need to get done, that goes to the next action items, the rest are not important, and combination of ikigai. And what I was also thinking is, if you could add, like, me being your client, add like a pyramid of human emotion, or a hierarchy of human emotions. Like, basically, if you are trying to serve high ticket customers, then you need to focus the emotion on hierarchy of which gets you paid the most, right? Something on those lines, because this is what
That,
AI.
that's the next. That's what happens in the next assistant, basically. So
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you for enlightening our viewers and listeners on AI assistance and what you're coming up with. Now we're getting into the nitty gritty of telecom sector. So I
Yeah.
want to discuss more about AI, predictive analytics, personalization in telecom. So can we discuss the integration challenges and the opportunities AI presents with regards to personalizing customer experiences?
So a big foundation of AI is having reliable and unbiased data, and having lots of it readily available. Now, it's a particular challenge for telcos because telcos have been around a while, and BT, where I work, has possibly been, I think it's possibly the oldest telco in the world, definitely over 100 years old. And that means we have generation after generation after generation of legacy systems that were built quite often to be standalone, not to be pushing data out. They're quite sort of black boxes. And whilst we're well underway of a transformation to migrate to new IT architecture and systems, there's still a lot of work to do. So there's huge variations across our business ecosystem, because I deal with primarily with the business customers for BT. And so yeah, all those legacy systems and data silos are sort of challenge number one. How can we bring it all together? How can you then sort of normalize this? So we take security and privacy very, very seriously at BT, especially because we work with, not only sort of sole traders, but global multinationals and actually secret service agencies also. We literally cover everything. So we have to be incredibly careful and thoughtful about how we manage people's data. I think the other thing that I've learned over my 5 years at BT is just the level of awareness and skill. So once you've got the data, once you've got it in a good place, once you've got it where you can start to play around with it, it's actually people's levels of awareness of AI and skill managing it. So there's been a huge amount of time and investment, not only in building up a really strong data and AI team at BT, but also trying to upskill, especially people like product owners, designers, and engineers into what's possible with AI. But again, it still feels like even though we've been doing it for years, it still feels like, there's always something new, something better we can be doing with it. But I think it is, it's that thing that Arthur C. Clarke says about, the future's already here, it's just happening in pockets. And we've got some super advanced bits, but I think that sort of sea-level rise where everyone is sort of living and breathing what our customers want, but also what you can do with AI at the same time is, still got growth potential, I would say.
Let's discuss also the role of AI in digital customer experience. So there must be definitely some obstacles in telecom industry facing and adopting AI. So what are those challenges, and how you as a leader and BT as a company is embracing this new change?
So with anything big, the question is always, where do you start?
Mm,
And the one really positive thing about BT is that I think we've very much embraced this customer obsession. It's part of our digital mission to be customer obsessed creators who amplify growth. And so especially our data and AI team are trying to identify these use cases that we're going for. Again, I think there's sort of levels of maturity to all of this, and I think the where I'm trying to drive thinking at the moment is that we want to focus on AI and personalization that's going to drive growth for our customers and for us as a business. And this actually starts to narrow down what we're trying to do. I talked about the challenges with data, and if you're familiar with sort of personalization efforts in large organizations, there's this concept of a single customer view, a single view of the customer, whether that's existing customers or potential customers. Think of Google or Meta with their Pixel. They know all these things about you. I think telcos know an awful lot about their customers, but it's distributed all over the place. So how do we start to bring this together? How can we actually be looking outside of our ecosystem to our marketing funnels and things like this and starting to get a better understanding of what our customers want? And I've narrowed it down to sort of 6 or 7 areas where, there's obvious things like, how do we understand how we can help our customers win? What's the thing they're trying to achieve? How can we start to identify what the signals they're looking for? So if we understand what their goal or job to be done is, how can we start to understand what signals help convert them through the funnels? How can we start to know what our customers want to retain them, so we avoid churning, so we can increase these terms, revenue generating units or average revenue per customer account or things like that. And so there are a series of these things. When you think about the business outcomes and the customer outcomes you're trying to drive, that's a really useful way to start to simplify all of these things, especially in these very large telco organizations. So that's one part of it. I think there's a sort of I think the other sort of challenge with personalization comes back to the data again, but it's sort of a more sort of subtle, nuanced version of it. And again, it comes back to this sort of siloed nature of large organizations. In this case, in any large organization, let alone telco, that data passes from one team to another. So what can start as an insight in the insight and research team gets put into from a big spreadsheet or a sort of a business model into a PowerPoint, and everything gets distilled down, and then it gets put into another spreadsheet, or bits and pieces get picked up from it, and then it gets sort of distilled and sort of expanded, and you start to sort of lose information fidelity as you go along. And this happens with customer experience as well. So anytime you put information into a form on a website, especially if you're buying more than one product, that information kind of gets broken apart into thousands of pieces and put into different systems, and then it all gets brought back together again. It's a bit like, the Humpty Dumpty or whatever, that all the King's Men can't put it back together again. And so there's something around having a zero tolerance policy and almost an attitude amongst people to be, data is the most valuable thing in an organization, and ensuring its integrity and ensuring its sort of correctness and usefulness across every system and touch point that it needs to go along is super important. So again, a practice that I'm trying to encourage teams to do, yes, we need to think of our customers in terms of their personas and profiles, but actually thinking about the data like a persona is a really interesting exercise. And again, if you follow the data through the system, you can start to see how it's being treated, where things are going well or not so well. And so I think that sort of data thing is such a crucial part of it. A bit obsessed about it.
Beyond technical obstacles, how do you see the role of human-centered design in ensuring AI solutions are truly enhancing this customer experience?
Yeah. So I think I developed a few principles a few years back when I first started working with AI about, in what situations do you want to use AI? And the first one of those is that AI is all about giving people choices. You don't want to be told by a robot what to do. You want to feel in control. Our CEO Baz talks about this really nice sort of idea that our customers want perfect predictability. And that, it's easy when you flip that on its head. It's like when things are not perfectly predictable, what happens? Well, You don't know what's going to happen next. You might order something or do something, and then it kind of disappears off into a black hole. You never hear back. So there's a lack of transparency. You feel like you're always chasing people up, and you're waiting for them to do stuff. So you've got no control. And if you do take any actions, you're not getting any sort of feedback. So I think that whole idea of control is really important. You want AI to be analyzing all of this massive amount of data and giving you your three best choices.
Yep.
So we do a lot of that for our agents to give them we use something called Pega, which helps them work out what their next best action or actions are. So when they're interacting with the customer, they can make better suggestions. I think also you can use AI to remove a lot of the user experience. No one wants more screens or steps. So how can you use AI to cleverly extract bits of information from other touch points where customers have interacted to start to pre-populate things, pre-validate things, and do things in a more intelligent way? I can't remember what the third one is now, but yeah. Anyway,
That's all right.
I think that side of things is really important for the personalization. So.
Yep. And how about every industry has some trends that are going on? Obviously, most of the industries are now catching up to this AI trend. Apart from AI, what are the current trends in telecom that's shaping the future of telecom industry? Of course, you can discuss about AI, but I'm also interested. Is there anything else apart from AI?
So I think the main thing I'd want to talk about is sustainability, because I think it's very sort of front of mind for a lot of people. Certainly, a lot of people who work in my teams are always thinking about what their future is going to be like, especially the younger members of my team. And I think we're yet to see the sort of the day-to-day impact on more sustainable choices in the telco industry. So one of the latest products that I've been working on, something called Global Fabric, which is a big connectivity solution for large organizations. We've actually been exploring how we can give our customers more sustainable choices. So the idea with this platform is that you can connect from anywhere to anywhere, and then you can start to run products and services over the top of it. But which products and services do you run? Well, hopefully the most performant ones that work the best in those data centers, but also hopefully the ones that use the least power, that have the least CO2 emissions. And I think whether it's an AI-driven thing or not, there's a lot more choice we can give customers. So it's not just about money. It's not just about the performance of the thing. It's about what is the impact going to be on people and planet. So we're moving beyond the sort of the profit side of things to that people and planet. And I think certainly from my design practice perspective, I used to be very focused on doing things that were desirable, viable, and feasible. But I also include sustainability in that now. So as much as possible, when I'm guiding teams and people through these processes, trying to make sure that we're proving and testing that these things are desirable for customers, more commercially viable for the business, technically feasible to deliver value and scale and scale down, but also making sure things are better for people and planet as well. So I spend quite a lot of time thinking about that and sort of encouraging people to do it. But I think we're just starting to see where going back to the systems thinking, where the leverage points across organizations are to start driving more sustainable decisions for our customers and for our colleagues as well.
This is really important what you're discussing because in the fast pace of digital evolution, right? So the telecom companies or industries in general want to adapt to new trends. And how important is it also to maintain a consistent customer experience while adapting to this new trend?
It's absolutely critical, and it depends which aspects of the customer experience you're talking about. So people usually go to telcos, and this is going to sound a bit sort of philosophical and esoteric, but the jobs to be done by telcos are to provide stability, strength, security, increasingly sustainability, and then we use this other term, sovereignty, but you can think about it as compliance. So the stability is think of it like if you're going to AWS, you want 99.999% uptime. When you make a phone call, when you're on the internet, you don't want it to be dropping all the time. So that's one of the main things we give customers, that sort of ability to connect without things dropping. The strength aspect then, and I guess is a key part of the sort of the customer experience, is that when things go wrong, because things change in the world, people dig up roads, cut through wires, there's storms, all these sorts of things. When things inevitably do go wrong, you want things to go back up again.
Yep.
And I'm not going to go through all of these things, but it's sort of that sort of those are the things that customers expect never to change. So your mode of interaction might change over time. So increasingly we've shifted as an industry from talking to people over the phone with desk-based agents to websites, apps, and virtual assistants, and all these sorts of things. But if those underlying parts of the customer experience and what they're getting out of it change, I think our customers would go somewhere else pretty quickly.
Yep. And just moving on the same lines, we were discussing a lot about customer experience, which brings us to the website personalization. Because the youngsters are changing. Like, my father has never bought a phone without actually physically feeling it,
Yep.
right? It's changing a lot. So website personalization plays a huge role in improving customer experience. How BT or you as a leader can leverage, or how AI can be leveraged to understand better and meet the needs of customers who need to be made aware of what telecom services can offer.
So I think there's sort of two or three ways that I'm looking at this at the moment. So because my team works on omni-channel experience, so literally every channel by which our customer interacts, so whether it's like the web, over the phone, at an event, through print media, TV, whatever it is, it's very interesting to look across these different channels and start to extract as much data about them as possible to see which ones are the ones that the customers trust the most and what we're doing differently there that we're not doing in the digital experiences. There's a big drive towards more digital experiences, and historically things like when you pick up the phone and you have to dial those different numbers to get through, or there's a really clunky website, those things can be quite off-putting. But there's clearly something we're doing in the human experience that we're not doing in those digital experiences. So using data mining techniques and AI, it's actually really interesting to start to look at the patterns that we're addressing in those human-to-human experiences that we can start to try and replicate in the more digital ones to actually try and do a better job. Because if you think about it, human beings can only know so much about a product or sort of a customer segment, but AI could learn everything they know and actually be a super knowledgeable customer. And that then moves us to the second bit, which is actually when you look at websites today and apps, it's almost like old-fashioned. And I say that because it's a very one-size-fits-all approach generally. We're starting to see more personalization depending on what adverts you've clicked and the funnel you go through. It might take you to a more personalized page. But the truth is that a lot of people out there just do not know what telcos especially sell. What does SD-WAN or secure access service edge actually do? Unless you're a plumber and you know all about these things, then it's unlikely you know. So how do we, I think the next phase we'll see in website personalization is moving away from interaction models where people use the search or this sort of very rigid navigation structure to be something a bit more conversational. So speaking to like a chat GPT assistant who tries to understand what you want, what you're trying to achieve in the language that you might use when you pick up the phone to a human being, and actually use that encyclopedic knowledge of all the things the company does and all the challenges and problems that we solve, to say, well, actually, here are three great choices for you, or here's a set of things that are. So it may be that we never expose that level of complexity to people in the future. It's fine if you know what you want, you can use the search and the navigation. But I think that sort of conversational AI assistant world is a really interesting space because, a lot of people do like speaking to a human being. What if we could make something that was more human and had all of that knowledge and that could get you to the things you wanted really quickly, and give you confidence and guide you through that whole sort of journey of picking it up?
What metrics or indicators usually company are used to gauge the success with regards to personalization?
Yeah, so I think the BT we have things like ease, efficiency, and satisfaction. So the sort of qualitative things that look at um, how confused or not confused you were, task completion, how long it took you to sort of start your experience to get to the end of it. There are cycle times that look at once you've sort of got through a certain part of these things. And so I think overall we're looking at trying to sort of reduce down that the time it takes, but also at the same time increase the the positive emotions of our customers. How happy are they? How much do they trust us to actually be to have the right to suggest these things to them? So we're trying to make the shift from being a telco, just selling telco related products, to more techco products. But that requires building trust. Customers trust us to be inside their homes and connect them, and manage all their phone calls and stuff. But when we start adding more things onto that and trying to create more of an ecosystem, then that does require that sort of trust. And if they're not happy, if we're not making them more productive, then why would they trust us to help them innovate and try new things?
Yep. I have a very, very special question for you. I have a magic wand in my hand. I'm going to pass that to you. And this magic wand could solve one big problem in the telecom industry. You have the power to use this magic wand to solve one problem only. What would it be and why?
I think it would be something to do with the data I was talking about earlier. And it would almost be like a special magic genie that would check every time we capture any information or move it from one place to another, that it is the right information. And if that was the case, and we were confident all the data was correct and accurate and reflected the right things, that would completely change almost every telco out there, I think. And it would allow us to do a lot more interesting things a lot more quickly with things like AI. So much, it's kind of like it's definitely one of sort of the root cause issues of a lot of problems that any legacy organization faces. So if we could fix that, that would make my life a lot easier.
With all of the knowledge about tech and AI that you have, you probably might find some solution for this. I'm not going to be surprised. Let's say we have another podcast in a year's time. You're going to be like, Danny, I already found a solution. Here's the magic one solution I already have. Because seeing your journey, I think it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I think there's still at the moment, I haven't quite sussed it out, because I think there's always that aspect of having empathy for the people involved. There's things that AI can't and will never be able to work out. And so you'll always need to have human beings in there. But I think it's definitely not an unsolvable problem. So
Robin, with this, we're coming to the end of our podcast. And I must say that having you in our podcast has opened our mind with regards to AI and what are the possibilities, especially with regards to AI assistance, and also about the industry, telecom industry itself. What is that you are doing with your team? What is BT as a company coming up with the solutions, taking customer-centric approach and obsess over customer satisfaction, and how they are using AI to build a better experience for the customer is amazing. So I would like to thank, on behalf of Kiosk and behalf of Digital Customer Experience Podcast, thank you for being with us.
Wonderful. It's been great being here. And thank you very much.
And for our audience, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth discussions on the digital customer experience. Drop us a comment below with your thoughts or any questions that you might have for Robin or our future guest. Until next time, stay curious and keep innovating. This is Daniel Paul from Kiosk.